My name is Frankie FearLess. After a decade of being on a journey with the help of the plant medicine ayahuasca, I realized I've met some of the most amazing beings going through powerful awakenings. They have their own adventures, their own stories, their own wisdom and personalities. Today, I would like to introduce them to you. It's time we become something more together. This is FearLess Conversations. Greetings, everyone. It's your main man, Frank Castle, your Sorcerer Supreme. FearLess Conversations. I'm so excited tonight. One of my friends that decided to join us here, he's a buddy of mine, and it's funny, we make friends and they're never from around the neighborhood. They're always from the other side of the planet or really far away. His name's Don Rogers. He's a remarkable human being. He has an incredible story. I want to share that with you tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about Don Rogers. His spiritual awakening started last fall after a series of future super soldier TransDimensional experiences he thought were nightmares jump-started his understanding of the reality that surrounds us. After a series of q.h.h.t sessions, the first of which was live on Typical Skeptic, Don found himself connected to the higher self in a way he had never known before. This left him with more questions than answers, so he started his own podcast in hope of asking the questions that most newly awakened have. Don, thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you. Welcome to the FearLess family. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Frank. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for having me on FearLess Conversation. I guess, yeah, basically what you started to say there is how all of this started for me was like I was having these crazy, what I thought were nightmares. And I mean, like, I was, if you've ever seen the movie Avatar, basically like that, I was waking up in a biological human body in a future existence of Earth. And we were fighting large reptilian animals. And like, I mean, I was having experiences where I would die 30 or 40 times in one night. And like, I mean, like it was to the extent where the one night I was so terrified of the way I had just died. I literally wet the bed as an adult. Like, I am not fucking ashamed to say it. It happened. It was that scary. Like my wife couldn't sleep within a foot of me, fear of getting attacked, because sometimes I was acting this stuff out. And eventually she was on her podcast deep dive, because she wanted to understand all of these things way before me. And so she's like, look, you have to watch this. And I'm like, fuck podcasts, I don't do that, that's for new age crap, I'm not into it, right? And she's like, no, this has to do with you. And she ended up getting me to watch an episode of Typical Skeptic, and it was about the secret space program. And it was so parallel that I actually finished the episode in tears, because it just resonated so much when they were talking about how they had been using their consciousness in these programs, and basically the ability just to lift you out of this existence to use part of you there. And that's really what got me into my better understanding, like, of, okay, well, wait a second, if they can do that, then that means there's a lot of other things that are possible too. And it led me to a better understanding of like the way this reality works, the physical construct, and how the societal construct that we live in right now is actually a huge part of the trap that keeps us repressed from these abilities.
That right there. Excellent intro. So I find that society props up the system because the system's invisible. It's just walls, buildings, bricks, floors, ceilings, walls. When people sit, it's when you untie it from inside of you, the construct starts to fall apart around you. So the building doesn't fall apart. The building where the people doing the evil things doesn't fall apart. it falls away. So as we take this journey and you're like, well, the matrix has you and we're inside the false matrix. I go, okay, well, where is this? Describe it for me. And what they describe is the system. And I don't know if you know this about us, Don, but we are system breakers. Breakers of the system. We shatter that crap. We make people recognize and realize what's happening by speaking our truth through experiences, and whatever wisdom gained, we share it so that others can piggyback off that and have that, but then still move forward. It's like a wave that comes behind us will come quicker now. It's almost like when the tides come in, they move very fast. So in your so this is from last fall. So this
Yeah.
hasn't been a long time for you.
No.
This is a lot. What we've discussed is a lot compacted into a little time. You've been on the ships. You so I want to just say this right now up front. Don was doing a q.h.h.t hypnosis session, and I popped into the session through your experience, and you were discussing it. That was before there was any discussion of you and I in that light at all. So I was telling my wife, I was like, I didn't talk to him about these topics. This is like, for me to be in the session means we're there. There's no lie. All right. Could you elaborate on that experience a little?
Yeah, and it actually brings into focus something I was going to mention anyway. Is I think what we're figuring out, and what this has caused me to figure out, is that we're experiencing multiple existences of our consciousness in all at once. Like, time is not linear. I know this is getting woo woo, but it's really not. Time is not linear, and there's multiple existences of us going on in multiple realities at the same time. And sometimes you can tune into those. And what I was seeing was the existence where Frank was basically, and it's funny because it actually ended up working. He's become sort of a guru to me because him and I talk a lot. But in the session, Frank was my instructor. Frank was one of the ones there as I was graduating to go into my next position in the secret space program. And it that really just kind of hit me right now that this actually kind of ended up working out like that, but in this reality. Sorry, that just fucked me up. Um,
So
yeah,
we
it
were working it
actually.
out up there, and then it trickled down to here, and then all these crazy things happen to us in the flesh, but it's really us talking up on the ship. And then, however, that the idea from those versions of us trickle directly into us. So we make the connections here. We're like, oh, how did that happen? It was a q.h.t session. It was magic, like under the Christmas tree. But meanwhile, there's an avatar scenario occurring, right?
Yeah, we're the avatars. It's literally like there's a higher stream of consciousness telling us what to do here. And yeah, that's
And it's like
exactly.
other versions of us physically there,
Yeah.
having the discussions. I said the other day I tuned into Don, and I just, because I was on your show, and then I I went to the ship instead of tuning into you, and I was like walking, and then I hit the door, and then when the door opened, it was you, and you were teaching a class, and I was like, oh, am I interrupting? I'm on the ship. What is happening here? I'm really here. And you were like, oh, it's the other guy. Like, you knew that it was me, this Frankie up
Yeah.
there, because of the confusion I was having. So we must be going back and forth, and then having these like regulatory moments, like when we actually tune into to the higher frequency.
I think you're absolutely right. And in real time, this just happened before you started talking. I wrote down last week because I was going to tell the exact same story that you just told. And that was a very interesting to kind of prequel what Frank was just talking about, I was doing my day job and was driving towards the city of Calgary, and I was using speech to text on my phone, and I messaged Spinja and I said, there's a fleet of disc-shaped clouds over the city of Calgary right now, and that's actually where I was going. And then I corrected myself and I said 30 to 40. Well, we use a driving app and for my job, and I happened to glance at it, and I was like an hour ahead of schedule, which isn't unusual because it's kind of the off season, so there's not a whole lot of cleaning to do. So I knew I was an hour ahead. I got to my next stop, which actually was in Calgary underneath the disc-shaped clouds, and what should have been a 5-minute stop, I lost 20 minutes. And so I actually still have the text on my phone where I said to Spin, I was like, I just lost 20 minutes somewhere. And that was like the next text that I sent her. So, and then I ended up having Frank on my show that night, and I told Frank about that. And that's where his part of this
That's
ties
right. I went to sleep. I was laying in bed and I was like, I have to go to sleep right now. It was middle of the afternoon. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon. What are we, like an hour difference?
in.
2 hours difference? So you could technically line us over each other and see if we're both in that same moment, because I slept ridiculously late. I was like, wow, I slept a little too much. Right. So that's when I had my experience. Then I went on the show and I spoke to you about it. And you were
Yeah.
like, yo, I lost time today. And I think I was on the ship. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, this makes sense. Like this is happening to us specifically so we can discuss this in front of everyone and have the open discussion, because there's others there. There's many others there. But we're tuning into each other for whatever reason. We know the reason. We'll talk about it a little more.
Yeah.
And you can place us, him with missing time and me having to go to sleep and being unconscious, was just weird, right? When you look at how many coincidences before it's a synchronicity and it all lines up.
Yeah. So that is exactly, and I can pull the texts. That is exactly when I would have been driving into Calgary, is when you would have been going down for your nap. And that's exactly the time frame of when I had the missing time. And like I can legitimately pull the text and show you the timestamps on them.
So missing time, this has been an issue since your awakening?
Yeah, the first one I actually had, I was going to pick Spinja up at work. She is an industrial sewer in the next town over. And I was driving in to Airdrie, which is, like I said, the next town over. And I saw like a chrome flash, kind of like what you saw in Lindsay, in the upper left part of my windshield. And it caught my attention right away because there's nothing along. We live in rural Alberta. There's nothing along the side of the road, so there's nothing there to flash. And the first thought that went through my head wasn't "What's that?" It was "Not again." And they actually let me keep that thought that time. I actually got to remember the bit of seeing the flash and thinking "Not then," or "Not again." And then the next thing I remember is I'm like 2 miles from where I should be on the road from when I just saw the flash, and I'm actually at my turn, right? Which is like I said, 2 miles down the road. So I go and pick her up from work, and for about the next 24 hours, I am just a dick. Like I was agitated with the cat, the dog, the bird outside, our kid, the television, that friggin' frog looked at me the wrong way. Anything.
Clouds?
I was the old man yelling at the clouds, like, God damn you! Like everything was pissing me off. And then, just like you, I was like, I have to go to sleep. And I went to sleep, and I woke up about 20 minutes later, and then I saw my little blue friends, the Arcturians, and I heard them telling me, they're like, look, we kind of screwed up when we sludged you back the other day, so you might have felt a little bit off. I'm like, do you know what the you just did to my life on Earth? Because you guys missed by 2 minutes? And they're like, "Oh, sorry, bro," and sent me back. Like, and then I woke up from my nap and I was fine. I was balanced. I could apologize to everybody. And thank God they've been here for my entire awakening, because I'd have sounded like a lunatic trying to explain that the aliens just told me that they screwed up my time, they've rebalanced everything, and it's chill now. Because if you tried to tell that to a normal person, they'd be like, "That's nice. There's some medication and a doctor."
So,
Right?
Don, I go through this exact same thing. I said to people in one of the last 3 shows I did in Fearless, I was like, listen, they showed me a Kodak projector from like the 80s where like you can pop the one picture out, right? And then you can load all of them in and the lights in the middle and you could project it up on the screen and go 1, 2. Okay, so it was frames of our lives, moments, and each moment it was like a picture has 1,000 words. So we have that every few seconds or every millisecond. I forgot how it works. Where we're there, we're not there. We're there, we're not there. So it creates snapshots. So the villains, for lack of a better term, the evil ones, the dark ones, would go pick out a frame that they thought they can take from us. They can go in on us. And they would go into the frame, find what they wanted, see what they wanted to do, whether it was in the past, the future, whatever, the now moment, they would do what they wanted inside that frame and then put it back at the exact moment because it had to go back at the exact moment or nothing would work. It would be a known problem and then they get busted for interference. Like, so the good guys would pull the frame after the bad guys and see what they changed. And I'm like, this happened so quickly that we're like, it's done already. It's already done. They did everything. And I had a day where I was skipping because it was going back and forth. They were like battling over our frames and they just kept pulling them, putting them back in, pulling them, putting them back in, changing it, changing it, changing. And I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa. What is happening? And then it was explained to me. I said, people aren't going to believe that one. That's a rough one, but that's what's happening. That's how they influence you in the now moment when it's not linear. It's actually a sphere time and it's happening everywhere. So they try to influence you in the time sphere. So when it echoes forward, it's in their favor. That's all they're really trying to do because you're the creator. You're that powerful. So dealing with this, how has this been?
It's actually been very interesting because it's just a balance of, like, every time I do a show, it seems to like give me a little bit more of an enlightenment and understanding. Like, I just did a show today and we ended up talking about absorbing your alters or the other stages of your consciousness into this reality, right? And like, it was just this in-depth, deep conversation about, if you want to be able to do it, you have to be willing to experience the trauma that created that alter, right? Because you have to be on the same vibrational level of where that alter came from, right? And that's how you have these strange occurrences of gnosis, is you're actually absorbing another version of yourself, right? As soon as you do the shadow work and you're able to get on the same emotional frequency of the version of you that had the experience, you will be able to transmute into yourself that version and all of their intelligence. And I've actually experienced this.
I talk about this collapsing timelines into yourself as the singularity. You gain everything positive, you gain everything negative. However, as it filters through you, the negative you can release, and the trauma you have to heal. So you'll experience. So we'll keep it in text for tonight. There was a version of me. I was so confused that was on a ship in a lab in front of cages, and they had pulled us out of cages and they threw us down on the floor. It was me, my mother, and my wife. And I was like, "Hey, what is this?" Like I didn't know what was happening. and the reptilians walked by. There was like one mantis, and he said, "Don't worry, you're next." They grabbed my wife, they ripped her to shreds and ate her right in front of me and my mother. And then we were like in shock. I was like, "Whoa." And they came in, grabbed my mother, and I was screaming. There was a whole thing that went on. It was terrible. Then it got to me. One of them just came over, grabbed me. They were so much bigger than me, like it was insane. Slammed me on the table. Instantly, I was torn apart. Then I was born again through my mother's womb, and we were healing each other. It was a weird moment. And I was like, "What the hell just happened?" And they said, "Oh, you just collected one of your clones." And I said, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Well, they clone you guys and they put you guys in like cages and feeding centers." And I'm like, "Well, that's terrible." And they're like, "Okay, check it out. You collected that. It's not going to happen again. They're not going to get a version of you now. You broke that connection." And I'm like, "Why'd I have to do that?" And they're like, "Did you see that trauma?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was terrible." They're like, "But you're not broken no more. So when you release this," I was under ayahuasca, so I was able to purge it out. It was scary, but my birthright is more important. That's how I felt. So
Mhm.
I want me back, all of me. So this is what we're talking about.
And one of the most prominent ones I reference for myself, and I'm not taking a shot at myself because I'm not indoctrinated. I am a grade 10 dropout. I'm just going to preference this by that. Um, and Spinja can attest to this. One morning, I apparently had an experience the night before because I woke up with a basic understanding of quantum physics. And like I said, I never studied physics in school. But I all of a sudden understood quantum entanglement and the basics of quantum physics in order to write a theory. Because Karen Holton had asked me a question about whether or not I thought this was a simulation, and it that whole experience came with a giant download, which ended up with me understanding the basics of physics and quantum physics at that.
Is there anything that you do during this awakening that helps center you while you're receiving all of this information? Because this is we're not even we're just deep ending of the pool. So how do you
Yeah.
handle it with all of this in one shot? I mean, it's only been last fall. You're 1 year into this.
Yeah. Um, for me, it literally took me 11 months because to become when I started to understand what was really going on around me, I couldn't straddle the horse of both realities. Like I had to. I was a stay-at-home dad. I just tapped out. I couldn't do a 9 to 5 job. My I had no basic control. That I just could not people. And it took me 11 months to be okay. Right? When I was broken again 11 months ago. That's what happened. I got broken and woken up at the same time. And it was literally like being kicked out of bed.
Yeah. It's like
And no,
you're in the egg and it just breaks the egg open and you're like, "Wow."
yeah, and it literally took me 11 months and basically a friend reaching out for help because he was at his wits end in that version of like the world that he lives in, the 9 to 5. Somebody from there reached out and I went, "Okay, I'm okay, but I'm still doing this because this is part of that now." Like
Yeah. It all
yeah,
yeah. You
and
come out to start doing what you really were meant to here to do.
yeah, and I have to right now. I have to be involved in the social construct that they've put in place, but I'm also able to live this existence where I can talk of things of like shifting consciousness and merging alters and all of this that is the real solution to what the hell is going on here, right? So I go basically pretend to be the old version of me, and I don't like being fake. But then I come home and I'm this
So you
because
have to wear the mask for work. That's pretty
yes,
much what it is. Yeah.
right.
We
But
have
it's
to do our
wonderful.
jobs.
Yeah, my office manager started watching my show.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's even bleeding through to that reality, right? And she gets it. And like I don't shove it in everybody's face, and I'm glad I didn't get stuck in the secret space program stuff, because it's much more fascinating to try to figure out what's going on, right? But I will never forget that that was the catalyst, because if it wasn't for that traumatic shit of like, I believe what happened is me and that stage of my consciousness started to wake up at the same time, and we had a direct frequency connection, because I'm him, he's me, and we started to bleed through into each other's realities to the point where we could actually start to see each other's realities. And that's why, like, I would either dream it, or through q.h.h.t I could actually go there. Like, it it really was like living the whole avatar lifestyle. Like, I was just popping into, and the clones that we use are like 8 to 10 feet tall, because the reptilians are like 9 to 15, right?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And so, like, but they have an abundance of them. It's not even like Avatar in that aspect. They're basically on a rack in, well, not a rack, there's just series of tubes, right? And you just like, you die in one, they offload you back into another one, and you pop back into that reality. Okay, fucking fight again. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
having the infinite character in a video game. You
Yes.
just resurrect over there and then come back into the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. But like, I did even manage to catch a look at myself, and I was humanoid and just a blank. Like, there's real no facial features. You're in like basically a biomech spacesuit.
Well, it's
That,
meant for war, so it's not.
yeah, because we're there. This is where it gets a little sci-fi, but it's a reality I've experienced. We're there defending a new version of humanity, um, and basically protecting the new version of humanity from being interfered with the reptilians, because of course they've sniffed it out. They've found the new version of earth that exists in that reality, and they want to eat and feed there too. But there's also a badass race of our consciousness that comes in and protects the new version that of humanity, is the best way.
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why we're waking up. We're the now moment. There's future aspects of us, there's past aspects of us, and everyone's like meeting the right frequency as we head up that spiral staircase. It's like clearing levels in a video game, and you start pulling and drawing information where you're like, where's this coming from? But I can see the line. It goes to this guy over here, but who's that? They're like, that's you. That's you. I said, but I've seen so many of versions that I go, I claim, and I always say this, oh, that's cool. I claim singularity. It all collapses into me because, and it sounds weird, right? When it's all mine, right? But
Yeah.
the focus and your awareness of that feeling and information is what allows your highest self to look in, sees and hears everything, tunes right into you and goes, that's the one. That's when you're going to have the experience. So when I ask my higher self, you're coming here, right? And yeah, well, I'm around you while all these other things are happening, but I'm going to fit inside you. Instead
Yeah.
of glowing around you like this, I'm going to squeeze in, but I'm not really squeezing in. You're actually uh decompressing and opening, letting the trauma out, healing all that, leaving all this extra space for me to overlay with you. And then it's going to just connect and bond. And then you're going to have it inside of you instead of what around you, because it's very big, the higher self and everything. But that's the end game. It's not like that's going to happen tomorrow, but we strive to go towards that. But we're those warriors. You're one of the warriors. Have you met when you meet an alter of yourself, a fracture of yourself, have you met one that you're like, oh yeah?
Oh yeah, like, and it's awesome that you get that, because like I think that you just hit it right on the head again. Is like clearing your trauma is what allows you to pull in your alters, and you get to basically, because that's where it gets dangerous. Because if you clear space within yourself, it's an open space, right? You can, and I would always suggest, if you don't have an altar or you're not aware of an altar to pull in, you want to fill that with like source light or something else. Because if you leave a void, that's a void for something else. And I have experienced that as well. Like during my stage of alcohol addiction, there was a void in my emotional self, and it got taken over by an entity that was not me and almost destroyed my now marriage. So like it really is, uh you have
Yeah,
to
well,
fill that.
you got to clear it out, and then get lighter, and you fill it with light, literally. Like, this is literal, metaphoric, and it's like overlays and overlaps all this information. So yeah, you get lighter. I was once in an ayahuasca session where I looked like Swiss cheese, like I had giant holes through me from all the trauma that I just healed. And then I said, "Oh great, how am I supposed to live like this? What am I supposed to do?" And then it just filled with source light, and I felt great, and it healed everything. And I said, "Whoa, I feel awesome right now." And thank you. Like, I didn't know what to say. Like, I was just like, "Thank you." And they're like, "No, but that's all the stuff you're letting go of is all the stuff that's not you, that you don't need. It's just like random info that's no longer necessary being pressed upon you because everything's changed. You're evolving."
It's funny that you say that, and we're talking. I think of the fact that I think I'm a completely different marker version of myself, because Spinja and I were talking the other day. We have a neighbor that was being very discourteous. You could feel the bass from his stereo in our house, right? And she's like, if an Akai stereo with big Bose speakers fell into your lap, I think I'd be able to accept that type of behavior from you right now. And, it kind of made me think of like when I was 25, and that was actually who I was. I had the big JVC speakers and the double 12s, and I actually had neighbors complain because I was shaking shit off of their walls, right? I was that asshole. And she's like, well, I would allow it. And I'm like, I looked at her, I'm like, I don't even fucking like him, right? Because that's a completely different version of me. But the me now thinks he's a dick.
I would definitely fight the old me. I would have
Oh
to,
yeah.
because I was a complete meathead.
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
how can I have all this conspiracy stuff that I know all turned out to be true, and not give one shake in the direction of like source, angels, ETs on ships, the ability to do all kinds of none of that was there for me. The ancient
Yeah.
Egypt stuff, I was just like, yeah, whatever. It's all fake.
I
I don't know. I don't even know. And then
dude.
to come to this level, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I think, and you'll get this because you were one of the first one. Well, you were the first one to ever say to me, "How many times do you got to be on the ship?" Right. Well, let's go back to '94. I shared an experience with someone on another show, and it was about when I was a young man myself, and we lived across from a military base, like across the water from a military base in Ontario, and we saw craft. We saw the Phoenix Lights years before that ever happened, right? And this thing, they weren't just sitting there though. Like these things were flying across the sky, and they were over top of us, and they were back across the horizon. And I mean, bing, 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 bing. Right? Ontario's an interesting spot. And so this went on for what seemed like an hour, and I'm pretty sure we were all abducted that day. Um, so this goes on, and I had never really thought about it or talked about it until I brought it up on the show. And then about 2 days later, I get a Facebook message from my friend who was actually there. And she's like, look, it was in 1994 and it went on for over an hour and they kept going with this. I'm like, did I message you? She's like, no. I'm like, you don't watch my show, do you? She's like, no. I'm like, why do you seem so angry? She's like, I don't know. And I don't want to talk about this. And I'm like, oh, you were on the ship too. And you don't like that I triggered just that energy of that memory going back into the collective conscious triggered something in her where she was pissed off that I made her remember.
Because you can't hold it back. It's like it's like you want to stick a piece of gum in the dam when you start becoming aware of things, because, oh, if I could just go back to sleep, the steak will taste better. Or what, you know what I'm saying? Like in the Matrix, he's like, yeah, just plug me back in. You can't.
Yeah.
Your
No.
consciousness breaks the dam so
Yeah.
that you'll be plugging up holes, and then along comes Don, drops a little knowledge and just says something that triggers. That's meant to happen because you're probably on the ship. She's probably up on the ship with everyone, and then she's like, the key word is, and then gives you the word, and then you're like, oh, that's gonna be funny, and then you just show up one day and you're like, hey everybody, how's the key lime pie? And people just start waking up.
Yeah. And I don't doubt that, and that's my view on this. And I'm not trying to get preachy here, but it really is about waking everybody up. And I've said it before, like, I don't have a book to sell or like merch to plug or even a show that makes money. I actually lose 35 bucks a month on my show. And no, that's not me begging for money. I'm just saying it straight. I just have like information and experiences and memories to share and hopefully help everybody else through their awakening. Right.
This
And
info has to come out. It has to. This isn't something to be argued.
yeah,
My information is relevant. Don's information is relevant, right? Why hold this in?
and I just got to say I can't stand this pay to play gatekeeper bullshit either. Like I'm sorry for getting a little offhand here, but there's people that know things that are still stuck in that matrix system of pay me to play, and it's like, what are you doing?
Well,
You know better
I've been
than that.
through this. I don't have the book. All I say is I make music, right? Or
Yeah,
just click like. That's all you have to do. Click like. No
yeah.
matter what I say or do, because there's no price tag on it, it lessens it, I believe. But it's for the ears of the people who are listening, right? Like, I'm for the people that are ready right now, that want to hear it. Because if I put 10 people on the mind frame of getting themselves corrected and they just go do it, and then just we all ask each other questions to stay all right, like we're not crazy, okay, good. Those 10 people are like, for each one of them is worth 10,000 people that aren't paying attention, right? That are just like, Jesus save me. That's so every activation. So if I have one activated person, one of my I don't take a lot of clients. It's specific to who needs it. They show up, and those are the ones I help. I don't promote it. I'm not out here like, oh, come do this with me. I can be. I can do that. I don't want to though, because then it becomes work. And I feel like I can't make the connection. And isn't it better to have the one-on-one and then just have your awakening? I'm there by your side, and then you go into the world, do your thing, and we're all here. And if there's questions, comments, we need to talk. We just talk to each other, and it just keeps growing.
That literally sums up the only reason I do my show.
Yeah, me
Right?
too.
Like I was just playing, saying like I don't make a cent off of it. I don't, but I have to ask the questions from like the dude that just from months ago just rubbing my eyes to the understanding I have now. I want to ask, the people that have been awake 5, 10, 15 years, because I just got here and y'all know some shit that I need to know. And I bet you there's some more people. And it's exactly what you said. Like, I love when I get an individual comment of like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize that happened to you." Me talking about a 20 and back, or sorry, I was talking about my 5 and back, and this lady wrote in the comments about just that triggering that she had had 220 and backs. and she put it in her head that she was crazy and that was just a nightmare. And when I explained that I went to school for 5 years in one night on my show the one time, she was like, I thought I was crazy. I didn't realize, because nobody broke it down for her until then, right? And that one comment hit me so deep that I still think about that woman. I'm like, I hope she's doing better, knowing that that wasn't just some crazy fucking dream.
Yeah. Well, we gotta so just when you thought there was nothing out there, along comes a conversation out of nowhere, or you watch it on YouTube and it connects you to the information you're looking for, to hear, I'm not alone. Wait a second. This is wild. So and there is no coincidence. It is only synchronicity. It's like we make contracts and deals to help wake others, and we just drop the seeds, drop the seeds, drop the seeds, and just keep it moving. That's what I've been doing, just keeping it moving. Hey, you like it? High frequency music, check it out. I'll always come and talk. I'll always be there to have the fearless conversation. I'll always come and drop, because it's my story. My story's amazing because it's an amazing story, but everyone that's going through that kind of archetypal hero's journey is having it in their version, in their life, but there's many similarities that cross over, many. So it's
Yeah.
like, so I don't feel I was ever involved with the 20 and back. Do you want to explain that for anyone that doesn't know what that is?
Okay, I can tell you about the five and back's easier to explain because I
Okay.
basically I went to sleep one night at my mother's house, and average night I went to sleep, and then for the next 5 years I was in what looked like a basic military school, and I experienced an entire 5 years of high school. Like I did the basics of reading and writing and math and phys ed and arts and all of these things, and then it led into like weaponry and martial arts. And that when you got into, I think it was about 11th grade, you started to learn how to fight everything on Earth, and then you started to learn how to fight things that didn't look like they were from Earth, and then you started to fight people and beings that didn't look like they were from Earth, and then you started to learn to fight monsters. And like, of course, if you like almost die, they put you in the gel and you're okay in like 24 hours. But all of this took place. And I mean, like, I had friends, I had a girlfriend, I had favorite teachers. And this was an entire 5 year high school experience. And then I woke up and I was back here and I was still 15. But the problem was, I didn't have that recall of all the school at that point in my life. That just actually came within the last year of me being able to recall that 5 year period. But 2 weeks later, I moved out of my parents' house pretty much permanently because I felt like I was 20 years old. The the imprint of that time passing never went away. I experienced 5 years. It was just in another reality, and then they put me back here.
Right, right.
That basically, and anything in back is that type of experience.
That's crazy, right? It's so intense knowing that it's like you're taken out and then put back right at the moment that they took you, right? And then people, their minds get, they say they wipe them, but you can't really permanente wipe anything. You have things like the Akashic records you're attached to. At any point, you could just start a download because you're awakening and download the information that was removed from you. Like you're just surrounded by the information anyway. But they try, and sometimes they're regressions, physically. Sometimes they take you, you go experience it over there, and then you're back. I always wonder, like, what happened while I was gone? Those years, did you pull me off a timeline? Did you
Yeah.
shift the timeline and then stuff me back into a version of myself on this side? Like, how does that work? But I have seen the training. I'm not going to say I was part of the 20 and back at all, but I've been on the ship, right? And I've been with the other version of myself that's has his own ship, and he just took me by the training areas, and they were in They were beings that they were in the gel, in the tube, right over here lined up, right? And then there were giant glass windows on both sides. I was walking right down the middle, and the people that were in the gel were now in bodies that were huge, and they were doing the most spectacular things I've ever seen anyone do ever. They were in 2 arms, 2 legs, jacked, like muscular, moving like cartoon characters move, like the way you would draw a ninja in a cartoon, like just jumping and flipping. And I'm like, when did that start happening? They're like, oh, they're training.
Mm.
They were in rooms where you could designate, like you're saying, ETs, and there would be levels where multiple of them will attack you. One of them will attack you. A more advanced version attacks you. You beat them. It's like you could just go to the next thing. I was like, whoa, this is a little above my pay grade. They're like, no, this is happening on your ship. And I'm like, what? That version of me is like this purple guy. He's beautiful looking, but he's kind of, I don't want to make fun of him, but he's kind of dressed like Zorro without the hat and the no mask. And he's like purplish. It's almost like he has feathers, but not. But he's a humanoid. He carries a sword, and he has the half cape like Zorro would. And I'm like, and he's wearing the black, and I'm like, wow, this guy's amazing. And they're like, that's you, bro. I'm like, he looks nothing like me, but you look in his eyes and you see it, and you're like, oh. And they're like, yeah, we're showing you around.
Yeah. He actually lives on basically a crystal planet. I know exactly the being you're talking about because I've seen my own.
Yeah,
And
I'm shocked still to this day. I imagine him like
uh,
an action figure.
yeah, I can actually send you a picture of where they live.
I'm like, this guy is totally boss. And they would like go, snap out of it, snap out of it. We're on the ship. And I'd be looking at his clothes, touching it, touching everything, saying, what's this made out of? I did that
Yeah.
to Space Jesus too. I said, oh, look, he's got the robe on. I grabbed the robe. I wouldn't let go. I couldn't. I was like, does this white stain? This is amazing. I was like, you'd be walking around in a robe. Everybody else looks like you're in Star Trek. It's the
And
weirdest stuff.
that's the really fascinating part is when you were talking about how they basically take you out like a slide, right? That's kind of like what these experiences are, is like you're just taken out of this time and they can pull you sideways into their time loop. Like there's a whole experience that they want you to have, or they need you to have, or they want to see what happens when you have whatever the hell the preference is. You just kind of get pulled out of this time, experience it, and then they just put you back in the slot and hope you never realize. And I wanted to touch on that when you were talking about that earlier, is how people like you and I, and especially people in these programs, have moments of forgetting or getting mind wiped. And it's really exactly what you were talking about. And even deja vu, it's them fucking pulling you out, putting you back, pulling you out, putting you back, pulling you out, putting you back. When you walk into a room and you just blank out, that's that. You've been in and gone. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
They pulled you in
it,
and out real quick. It happened so fast.
yeah.
I don't know how they
No,
access that. Like, are you
I
using an AI to analyze that? Like, how did you even know that was there?
that's one of the things I've been trying to figure out and like learn through gnosis or whatever. I've been looking for the altar that knows it, is how we can just be like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to wake up in this one. Or I'm going to have a nap right now and I'm going to wake up as this
I
version
think
of
that's
me.
your higher self. I think he's doing that. He's like, you need this, and he sends you over.
Hmm,
When we have no clue, that's the higher guy just controlling the whole thing. So it seems random to us. We're like, why would this happen? But then something that happened 9 months ago here, you still haven't fully figured it out, but now it's helping you in a scenario 2 years later. Like, you start going, wait a second. So I needed that
yeah.
just to fix that little thing I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're the singularity.
Oh, yeah. Like, I even recently, like, Spinja and I have been deconstructing, and I think that's one of the best ways to deprogram yourself from this stuff is when you start picking it out in your own reality and just like, wait, that's stupid. That doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Right? You can actually start to call out the programming, and when you see it, and it's like, no, that's not right. And
That's
it,
how
it's
you're supposed to do it. It makes more BS jump out at you so you can go, man, what is this nonsense? So
it,
you're spotting it, but you're like, it's been there the whole time. And
yeah,
now I get to ignore the bullshit because I see it.
yeah, and like you said, even with the lessons, like, and it's almost happening in real time. Something stupid will happen, but it'll make us realize something else, and it's like, are you fucking kidding? Really? Like,
Yes.
it just there was a thing with our truck braking, and we ended up having a huge realization about something because of our truck braking, but it cost us $1,000 to learn one thing. And it's like, come on, like, could you not have just told me?
No, they can't. They need you to see that and have the dollar value attached to it so you can go, that ain't going to happen again
Yeah.
ever. Right? Like I'll remember that. It goes in the ding.
That
One
sucks.
amazing thing I noticed that you're having is with your wife. What's happening to me and my wife, where we're beginning to share
Mm.
and grow closer with our abilities. It's like the first people to pick up on each other are the people that are in a relationship that want to be whole people on their own, but at the same time are willing to share with another person, creating like this energetic, like the infinity loop from one person to the next. And you're experiencing that, right?
Oh yeah, like we were talking about this before the show. We went to my company Christmas party, and we kind of had to check each other before we left the house. It's like, okay, we actually have to use words, or people are going to notice that we're weird. And what I'm talking about is like, I'll be getting ready for a show or about to cook supper or something, and I'll walk into the bedroom, and she'll just be like, and I was like, I
That's
didn't tell you I
exactly what
needed
I
that.
needed.
I didn't tell you I needed that pen. How did you? And she's like, we'll just start laughing. Or like you were saying, we'll have like entire conversations that are like 3 words, like booger fart, and
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
know exactly what they meant, right?
And
You just
I'll go into insane laughter with her over it, and then we'll laugh so hard it almost pops us out. Like what I'm seeing in my mind's eye is almost like the laughter is raising us into this other place, and then you break through, and it's like a higher frequency, beautiful thing that it's almost like you connect together and you go up into that space, and now you can access this beautiful area. And it's like in a world where you feel like you can never escape, to be with the one you love and know how to escape with that person on the mental level together just deserves a round of applause for everyone doing that stuff.
we married each other, and in our values we called one another our interdimensional exit buddies, because we both know that we're a stream of source consciousness, and exactly what you're talking about. And you'll get amused. Like I'm developing a whole Frank theory here, but I have what I call a brain monkey, right? And it's a thought form that exists within my consciousness, and it's a completely different voice, but it's not harmful. It's not an entity. It's not anything. It's just a stream of information that is very, very humorous. And I call it my brain monkey, and his name is Frank. I also have a very vivid imagination. The one day we were laying in bed, and Spinja and I were connected. We were just both in a very theta state and chill, and just kind of like, could you imagine if? And then she decided she was going to play with my brain monkey. And all of a sudden, she was projecting the imagery of her bathing my brain monkey and then playing in the tub into my brain, where I could visually see it in my own imagination. And she was barely using words.
Sharing is caring, bro.
Yeah, like it was just fascinating. I'm like, did that really just happen? She's like, you could see what I was talking about, couldn't you? And I'm like, yeah.
When I do any work with my wife, she always says, I'm open to only you. Like, I'm open to share with you and only you the energy. I trust you. And I'm like, oh, ayahuasca used to tell me, no matter what you decide, remember when you think of her, she's going to trust you no matter what it is, especially if she doesn't know about it. Like, you got to be gentle with that. Watch what happens. So I go, okay, I'll work. I just want to clear out and do the right thing and whatever. And magic starts to happen immediately because you have the best intention. It just, I'm able to go in, see things, clear it, pull it right out, whatever needs to be done, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then if nothing needs to be done on that level, we experience the connection where it just, you make the connection, you rise higher. It's hard to explain raising your frequency, but we've all been there when you're in a moment where you feel like in sports, you're on a roll with something, right? You get the roll going, you got the ball, you're scoring, you get this high about you. You get all of that inside, and it takes you somewhere internally into the upper frequency where you don't actually even have to be doing anything. You could just be sitting with someone doing that. That's advanced stuff, man.
Yeah, and I get it. Like it's wild because like times where you literally just feel it shift, like you feel it open it up, and you just get an understanding, and especially when her and I are just the nonverbal communication is by far the most interesting thing. And literally, I'll share one more before we go because I know we're getting on to an hour. We were in the kitchen the one day, and it was in around the time I was talking to Rock Castaldo, and we
My
were
brother.
joking around, right? We were joking around and doing the Sesame Street bring, bring, them damn puppets, right? And she's like calling Rock Castaldo, call I shit you not. 10 minutes later, bro phones me just to shoot the shit.
Yeah. He'll
Right?
hear you if you do that stuff.
Yeah.
He's a tuned in guy.
Oh yeah, it was just wild though. I was like, "Oh my god, you actually called him!" Like, and that's something that I was saying on the show I just did before this. Is like the technology that we're given right now is the byway version of what we're actually capable of, and the only reason they hand it to us at such a cheap, discounted rate is to keep us distracted from figuring out how to do it ourselves.
Yeah, to keep a cheap, discounted mind.
And
That's why they do it.
yeah,
Right? We're gonna cheat and cheese this one all the way to the end. We're gonna supplement the the fake reality with a product that emulates what you can just normally do if you just stayed over here. But it's okay. We all got knocked offline, getting
yep,
back online. Now I have one last question.
yep.
Right? Do you think there's gonna be a rubber meets the road point with the ships and all of us?
Like actually seeing them.
With your physical.
Oh, yeah, I think it's going to be a shift in perception, actually. Like, my current understanding of it, anyway, is it's much like some of the sights and sounds that we can't see and hear right now. They're literally just right there at every moment and every time. There's things just outside of our perception. And I think it's going to be a lot like the 100th monkey theory, and so many of us are just going to click online that vibration is going to resonate out to anybody with even a slightly open mind to these concepts and just kick everybody online. And it's going to be like, holy shit, they're there the whole time.
Yeah, 100 people could be doing shows here and covering like just a topic, and then somewhere where those shows don't exist, that information doesn't exist, all of a sudden has that information and is doing exactly what you're talking about without any of the stuff that you have. And then everyone that comes in after him starts at that base and up. So you become like just more. They're like waves that come in and break on the shore quicker and quicker until the tide comes in. This is a big moment for us. I feel like pulling that from you would be a good one, because I know you know for a fact there's going to be a point. I've seen a point where they just, and I say they, but it's us, so it lands, and that we're just invited, right? So there's invites that go out personal and collectively, kind of like for small groups of people first. That's already been happening quietly, but I'm talking about, you'll know, and people will show up and be like, I think I'm here for, and you'll meet everyone, right? Um, and then it'll become more and more as time goes. At least my take on it is, like, as the solar flash draws closer, we're gonna have more and more sightings, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like we're here to be like a bit of a cushion for when it does occur, for family members or friends or people that are just like, wow, so this is happening. So they could just look at Don, and Don be like, yo, I got you. It's cool. Like, yeah, it's happening. Don, is this happening? Yes, Frank, it's happening. But you knew
Spinja,
this, Frank.
Spinja literally just kind of said off camera there, Field of Dreams. That's who we are. Like when the family members can't see the baseball players, it's gonna come online to us.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's how this is gonna work. That's the concept that you're talking about. Is like we're going to be able to perceive it before some other people, and as they click on, we're going to be like, hey, let me show you the whole team. It's over
Yeah,
here.
because they got to
Right.
see the people that could handle it. That's the problem with the human experience, is that they need to see, the human needs to see, touch, feel, smell, taste, right? Like, you're opening this up, but the what's about to happen, so advanced, so futuristic, even though it's not. It's just new to us now. This has already been going on everywhere. So when it occurs, there's no problems that come from health, understanding, like a mental understanding. Oh, the gods are coming to kill us. No, nobody's coming to kill you. They're coming to eat us this time. No, because they're going to be triggered, because people are having that other stuff happen or have happened to them, right? Somebody without the awareness but is awakening, that's like, I think I was on a ship and they were eating people, are going to have to come to the terms when the good guys land and just want to shake hands, that they're not there to eat you. But, at the same time, have common sense. If a ship lands, don't just get in it and leave.
Yeah.
I would always have the thought of, if you want me, you come back tomorrow, we'll talk again, and maybe we'll go. You don't just take me and leave with me. I got cats that I gotta feed, and I got my wife and my mother. Like, don't please don't do that.
Yeah, I think there should be definitely some discussion before we go anywhere. But yeah, I do think it's going to be a group of us that are going to seem even crazier than we do now
Yeah.
because we're going to be able to receive it before the mass populace, and then eventually they'll come on like lights. You
Yeah, yeah.
know,
You could point and go, look over here, right? Look at that. No, that's a starship with guys like us on it.
yeah,
Almost like snapping them out of the dream, right? Like,
it,
it's
exactly.
okay. This is gonna be a wild future, Don.
I think so too.
All right. So in closing for tonight, because we're usually do around an hour, uh, and we'll bring you back on, and we'll have like deep, just dive on conversations. But is there anything you'd like to tell everyone that's listening, and also how to find you? And then I'll put all that information in the description later tonight.
Absolutely. I think one of the most prevalent things that I could tell anybody, and you can do it your own way. I if it's ayahuasca, it's ayahuasca. If it's breathing exercises, it's breathing exercise. If it's meditation, it's meditation. If it's hypnosis, it's hypnosis. Yoga, yoga. You do you, but get in contact with your higher self, because that feeling of doing things right and wrong is your intuition, and your intuition is actually the first stage of your higher self. So no matter what way you want to do it, please look at getting in tune with your higher self, because that is the key to opening up what our existence here is actually supposed to be. And that is about the best advice I can give anybody at this point, because that's my best understanding of it. And I don't claim to know anything. I just have a current understanding, and I'm ripping that off of my buddy Chris Matthew. So that's the best I can give you. And speaking of Chris Matthew, that's where you can find all of my stuff is on the Forbidden Knowledge Network audio and on my own YouTube channel, Don Rogers at March 4th Productions.
Nice. That's amazing. Yeah, I love Chris. I love the whole setup, the forbidden knowledge. That's amazing. It's how I dripped in through the line through Chris and got to meet amazing people. And I look forward to future conversations with you, bringing you back on the show, and future conversations with many other amazing people. Don, thank you so much. Spinja, I know you're in the background standing right there. Thank you so much. We love you so much. Shout
Thank
out
you
to the You're welcome. Shout outs to the FearLess family. Check out Don at everywhere he just shouted out. Check out the description. I'll have all the links prepared for you. And stay fearless, everyone. Check out Sons of the Suns music too. And remember, the universe rewards bravery. Don, thanks so much. Spinja, have a great night. See y'all soon.